Hi there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to reading Rousseau's Social Contract. Right, this is I would say Aristotle, Rousseau's Social Contract. Today we're continuing Book Three of the Social Contract, looking at chapters 9, 10. Is it? Yeah, sorry, not 9, 11. Chapter 11, 12, 13, and 14. Starting with looking directly right at chapter 11 on the death of the body politic. The previous chapter talked about the dissolution of the government. This chapter now will deal with the death of the body politic. How does it die? Such is the natural and inevitable tendency of the best constituted government. Um, in other words, such is the natural and inevitable tendency of the best constituted government. If Sparta and Rome perished, what state can hope to endure forever? If we want to form a lasting establishment, let us therefore not hope to make it eternal. Right? This is not going to happen eternal. To succeed, it is necessary not to attempt the impossible, nor to flatter oneself with giving a solidity to works of men that human things do not allow. So, in other words, that as human beings die, so do states and governments die. Okay, so if Roman parish died, what state can hope to endure forever? And we shouldn't really want, if we want to form lasting esteem, let us not hope to make things eternal, because there's a problem here. Note 101, let's just do this quickly. Why is Note 101 interesting? Um, uh, compares Locke Hobbes, right? This is contrasting to Locke. Hobbes will say you can try to make things permanent. If we just do now there's this idea of eternality, just to get the clocks right, and everything will do it. Rousseau seems to suggest no, it's not going to happen. And to succeed, it's necessary not to attempt the impossible, nor to flatter oneself to giving a solidity to the works of men that human things simply do not allow. The human things do not allow a solidity. It's too dynamic, too flexible, too complicated, and therefore it's not going to have it's not going to be like a nice clock, nice solidity. The body politic, like the human body, begins to die at the moment of its birth and carries within itself the causes of its destruction. So, like the body, there was a metaphor of the body. The body politic is like the human body. It begins to die at birth, and then it carries within itself the cause. But each can have a constitution that is more or less robust and suited to preserve it for a longer or short time. So again, the metaphor of the body, the constitution of a person allows it to either its constitution, the character, make it up, that's health, its thing. The constitution of a man, if it's strong constitution, it's able to be robust and healthy, live longer. If it's a weak constitution, it'll be sickly and get ill and die, right? So this is longer and shorter time. The constitution for a state is the same. Good constitution of a state will lead it to live longer, and a bad constitution, a weak constitution, will lead it to fall into disunion and a sickness. The constitution of a man is the work of nature. That of the state is the work of art. So that man's nature is not a question of nature, but biology, organic. Here is the work of art. Art. It is not within the power of men to prolong their life. It is within the power to prolong that of the state as far as possible. So men, this unless we, we can if we do technology and things like this. Well, yeah, but that's a natural means. And within ourselves, within the capacities of ourselves, we can't prolong our lives in the power of men themselves. But it's in the power to prolong that of the state as far as possible by giving it the best constitution it possibly can have. So again, remember, but what is best is also what is dependent upon the people and the environment, right? As I said earlier, let's not forget that. Even the best constituted state will come to an end, but later than another. Okay, if no unforeseen accident brings about a premature downfall. So therefore, in other words, a better a const. No, if you get a better constitution, a state has a better constitution that ensures that its constitution fits it. It fits what the people are, and it fits what the environment is, and all these things, and it ensures that it will able to preserve itself and stabilize itself and will live longer than one that is not suited to it. Okay, right? The principle of political life lies in the sovereign authority. So the principle of political life lies in sovereign authority. The legislative power is the heart of the state. The executive power is its brain, giving movement to all its parts. The brain can become paralyzed, yet the individual is still alive. A man can remain an imbecile and alive, but as soon as the heart has ceased to function, the animal is dead. So therefore, this is this idea that the brain, the legislature is the heart, the thing that moves it, the thing that keeps it alive. It is that gives it its power. The brain is its organization. It is the it also ensures the movement in that sense that the energy from the heart and the things help do the movement, but that how things are moved, that is the brain, and that they are moved. Yeah, it is not through laws that the state subsists. It is through the legislative power. So it's not that laws make the state subsist, right? It's through the legislative power. Yesterday's laws do not obligate today, but tacit consent is presumed from silence, and the sovereign is assumed to confirm constantly the laws it does not repeal while having the power to do so. So, in other words, people consent to this, tacit consent, people do this, but then what happens is that the sovereign, if they don't replace the laws, they agree to it. So, tacit consent works both ways, for the people and to the sovereign. And therefore, the sovereign will maintain itself, and it's only through the sovereign and through the legislature that the power of that the state subsists in that sense. Everything the sovereign has once declared, everything the sovereign has once declared it wants. It always wants unless it revoked its declaration. So whatever it says it wants, unless it has revoked, changed its mind, right, and revoked what it said it wanted. Why then is so much respect accorded to ancient laws? Because their very age, in other words, people must believe that only the excellence of those ancient expressions of will could have preserved them for so long. So in other words, it's their excellence and they sovereign. And if the sovereign had not constantly recognized them as solitary, it would have revoked them 1,000 times over. So it's not that they're ancient because they work, and they're ancient because they work, right? This is the thing. They're not good because they're old. They're good. They're old because they were good. They worked, and that if they didn't work, and they weren't salutary, didn't bring benefits, then they would have been changed long ago, right? The sovereign would have removed them long ago. If the sovereign had not constantly recognized them as solitary, it would have been revoked them 1,000 times over. That is why laws, far from weakening, continually acquire new force in every well-constituted state. The prejudice favoring antiquity renders them more venerable every day. So antiquity, in other words, the state is perpetuate them, far from weakening. They acquire new force. Why? The veneration. In contrast with the laws, in contrast, wherever the laws weaken as they grow older, it is proof that there's no longer any legislative power and that the state is no longer alive. So if they weaken, if laws as they grow older, this law weakens, then it is proof that there is no longer the legislative power of the thing is dead. Its heart has died. Right, the legislative part is the heart in that sense, and therefore its heart has died. The state is no longer alive. There's nothing pushing it, moving it. Chapter 12, how the sovereign authority is maintained. The sovereign, having no other force than the legislative power, the force, in other words, has no other force than legislative power, acts only by law. And since the laws are only authentic acts of the general will, the sovereign can only act when the people are assembled. So therefore, this is this radical idea, the people are assembled. If the sovereign is going to act, the sovereign has to act when the people are assembled. The people assembled, it will be said, what a camera. It is a camera today, but this was not the case 2,000 years ago. Have men changed their nature? Right. So therefore, 2,000 years ago, today that's a chimera, not a real thing. It's not something phony, chimera. a phony, artificial. It looks like something other than it is. Not the same. It looks like it, but it isn't. But it's true to 2,000 years ago. What men have changed? The limits of the possible in moral matters are less narrow than we think. So therefore, this is interesting. The limits possible in moral matters are less narrow than we think. It is our weakness, our vices, our prejudices that shrink them. So our limits of the possible is not because of our moral matters that cause this thing. It's our weakness, our vices, our prejudice shrinks these possibilities. The limit of the possible. Base souls do not believe in great men. Vile slaves smile mockingly at the word freedom. Okay, this is a great line. In other words, this is like weak and our vile slaves smile mockingly. In other words, base souls do not believe in great men. Vile slaves mockingly smile mockingly at the words freedom. Let us consider that let us consider what can be done on the basis of what has been done. I shall not speak of ancient republics of Greece, but of the Roman Republic. It seems to me was a large state, and the towns of Rome and the town of Rome a large town. So it's not ancient Greece is too small. Rome was big. So the Roman example is going to be the bigger one. The last census gave Rome 400,000 citizens bearing arms. And last count, the empire showed more than 4 million citizens, not counting subjects, foreigners, women, children, slaves. So the last census of Rome had itself, the city of Rome had 400,000 men bearing arms, and the empire 4 million citizens. One could imagine the difficulties of call and frequent assemblies of the immense population of that capital and the environment. Yet few weeks went by in Rome which the people was not assembled, and even several times. It exercised not only the rights of sovereignty, but a part of those of government as well. It handled certain business matter. It tried certain cases, and the public assembly, this entire people, was nearly as often magistrate as citizen. So, whoa! This is what? Going back to the earliest periods of nations, it would be found that most of the ancient governments, even the ones like the Macedonians and the Franks, had similar councils. In other words, this idea that there was assemblies of this and that, and they talk about the councils of the nobles and the councils of the retinue. This is something Tacitus talks about the Franks, right? And this is something that in book part 6 of Montesquieu, particularly the last chapter, particularly, and the early chapters about the Frankish, not the Frankish invasion of the Roman lands, in part 6, deals with this. This is why Montesquieu's chapters that deal with this are very interesting. In any case, this one incontestable fact resolves the entire difficulty. The interference from the existence to the possible seems solid to me. In other words, the inference from the extent the existent to the possible seems solid to me. So therefore, this case, right, it's one conceivable fact resolves this difficult matter of here, that the inference from the existent thing that happened to what is possible is solid. Continuing of the same principle, chapter 13. It is not sufficient for the assembled people to have once settled the. No, it was not sufficient for the assembled people to have once settled the constitution of the state by sanction a body of laws. It is not sufficient for it to have established a perpetual government or provided once and for all for the election of magistrates. In addition to extraordinary assemblies that may be required by unforeseen situations, there must be some regular periodical ones that nothing can abolish or postpone, so that on a designated day the people is legitimately could vote by law without need of any other formal convocation. So therefore, this is This idea that they have to come together. In other words, not just together once. This is very contrary to Hobbes. Here, it's footnote 103. Compare the constitutional project for Corsica, right? He says, um, uh, 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 Rousseau does not follow his own advice with the government of Poland, where Rousseau does not follow his advice of the government of Poland, where Rousseau proposes a federal system. The argument in the next paragraph could be supported by the process of rapid urbanization in developing countries. See E.F. Schumacher, Small is Beautiful, um, uh, part three of Small is Beautiful. Okay, Schumacher. To emphasize Rousseau's preference for small communities, the word ville has constantly been translated town, as distinct from city, which for Rousseau has a special meaning of the classical polis, or the city-state. So the ville, town, not city, ville. But except for the assemblies, lawful by their date alone. Every assembly of the people that has not been called by the magistrate appointed for the purpose and according with the prescribed forms ought to be considered as illegitimate, and everything done as null, because the order to assemble should be itself emulate from the law, so that the people must gather. They must only gather because the magistrate has called them to gather. Those they've been instructed. They've been instructed to. So if they're not been, if they're, in other words, if there assembly is happening and has not been called for by a magistrate, then it's illegitimate. It has no, and anything done from it has no authority. It's done as null. As for the frequency of legitimate assemblies, this depends on many considerations that no precise rule can be given about it. So there's no precise rule. How many assemblies that must happen. There's no precise rule that can be. One can only say that in general, that the more force the government has, the more frequent the sovereign ought to present itself. So in other words, there should be. In other words, his argument here is there's no general rule about how many should have, but there is a situation. The more force government has, the more the sovereign should present itself. Should present itself at the assembly. It should assemble more and more. In other words, so the more force it has, the more the assembly should be held. Okay, so it should be proportion. It should be roughly in proportion. The amount of times the assembly is called to be held should be proportional to the amount of power the government exercises. It will be said to me that this may be well and good for a single town, but what is to be done when the state includes several? Will the sovereign authority be divided, or will it be concentrated in a single town and all the others made subjects? I reply that neither should be done. So neither that it should be just one town. Everything should be done as one town. What is done, in other words, but what was to be done in the town will include several. Will the general be divided, or will it concentrate in one town? And it says neither of these things aspects should be done. The first, sovereign authority is single and unique and cannot be divided without being destroyed. And in the second place, a town, like a nation, cannot legitimately be the subject of another, because the essence of the body politic lies in the harmony of obedience and freedom. In other words, subjects and sovereign are identical correlatives whose meaning is combined into a single word, citizen. So this is the idea that the citizen is subject. That when you have subjects who are not citizens, who are not part of the sovereign, then that's despotism, right? It's only that the subjects are composites are equal to the citizen sovereign, identical with this as correlatives, whose meaning combines the single word citizen. I reply further that it is always an evil to unite several towns into a single city. So don't do this. Don't block them. Don't unite towns into a single. That anyone who wants to create such a union should not imagine that its natural drawbacks can be avoided. In other words, The abuses of large states must not be raised as an objection to someone who, in other words, the abuses of large states must not be raised as an objection to someone who wants only small ones. But how can small states be given enough force to resist large ones? In the same way that the Greek towns resisted the great king, and so in Holland and Switzerland, and more recently resisted the House of Austria. There was alliances. Towns can cooperate with alliances. This is the difference between, and I think this is the difference, and this is the town is the koinonia, and that the Greeks did this because of, and the Romans did too. So it's societas, right? It is through societies, these agreements between towns, between the different towns, and different peoples that formed an alliance. Okay, this is the societas in Latin. This is where society comes from. So. However, if the state cannot be reduced to a proper size, there is still one thing remaining expedient. It is not to tolerate. In other words, it is not to tolerate a capital, but to locate the government alternatively in each town, and to convene the assemblies of the county, assemblies of the country, not county, country, and each of them by turn. Right. This is the idea of turn. Doing it this. And this is 104. Here, compare Rousseau's project. Okay, this isn't as far as on the voice. I quoted the wrong note. Oh, the other one is again about the General Council's refused argument reflects his criticism of the Geneva government. Okay, yeah, okay, this is okay. It's my mistake. So different note. But what I said before was this note here. Oops, 104. 104. So let me just put that here. Let's go turn to it. Populate the territory evenly. Extend the same rights everywhere. Spread the abundance in life everywhere. So you have to go. In this way, the state will become simultaneously and strongest and the best governed possible. Remember that the walls of the town are only made out of the debris of farmhouses. So therefore, the walls of a town are made out of the debris of farmhouses. At the site of each palace that I see built in the capital, I imagine whole countrysides being reduced to hovel. So you don't want to build a capital. Don't want to build a capital. You're going to build this big thing, then and not one city that's going to be capital. What you do is you then move the government from city to city to city to city to city to city to city. That's the way here. This is not following the advice of his position in making a confederated system in Poland. Chapter 14 continued. The instant the people is legitimately assembled as a sovereign body, all jurisdiction of the government ceases. So, in other words, the government ceases when all the sovereign body is there. All jurisdiction of the government ceases. The executive power is suspended, and the person of the humblest citizen is as sacred and inviolable as that of the first magistrate. Because where the representative person is, there is no longer any representative. So therefore, there's no representative. There's no idea. Once the citizens all meet, they're gathered. When the assembly, the sovereign is assembled, and therefore, like this is that every one of them is a sovereign, is sacred and inviolable as the first magistrate. Because because where the representative person is, there is no longer a need for representative. Most of the tumults that arose in Rome at the Comita came from ignoring or neglecting this rule. So we're saying that the examples of what happened with the Comita, with people gathering, right? That all the conflicts that arose in the Comita happened because they ignored this rule that once the people there, the government ceases to exist. The executive ceases to exist. On those occasions, the consuls were merely presiding officers of the people, the tribune, simple speakers, the Senate, nothing at all. In approximately the sense of the word speaker in the English Parliament, as it holds together the thing. The similarity between these functions would have created conflict between consuls and tribunes, even if all jurisdiction had been suspended. So therefore, this idea that conflict would happen between these officers. In the Senate, nothing at all. So therefore, on these occasions, the presiding officers are people that should be simple speakers. Again, this is alone. The word "speaker" here is that they, like the representing the body. In the Senate, nothing at all. And this is what the similarity between these functions would have created a conflict with the consuls, right? The presiding officer, right? It's ones who can speak and the consuls who are presiding. Last paragraph, well, last two penultimate paragraph. These interviews are suspensions during which the prince recognizes or ought to recognize an actual superior have always terrified him. In other words, the prince recognizes or ought to recognize this people together. It's always terrified the prince. And these assemblies of the people, which are the Aegeus, power, the Aegeus, the power. The Aegeus is the might and the power of Zeus, right? This is the lightning. This is the Aegeus of the body politic, and the restraint of government have been viewed with horror by the leaders of all times. In other words, when the people are assembled, the sovereign is assembled. Their power is there, and this is restraint, and the government is ceased, and therefore its government no longer has its power. This is all leaders view this as kind of like horror in that sense of all times. Thus, they never spare efforts, nor objections, nor obstacles, nor promises to discourage the citizens from holding these assemblies. Oh, please don't. They never spare efforts, nor obligations, nor obstacles, nor promises to discourage the citizens from holding them. When the latter are greedy, cowardly, pusillanimous, fonder of repose than of freedom, they don't hold out long against the redoubted efforts of government. So government, the leaders of government who is formed by leaders, the political leaders, they don't want these assemblies to be made. Because when the assemblies happen, the government's power is lost, stripped. The executive powers are lost. They're gone. And that what happens is that they have at best, the tributes and the consuls have a problem here, right? And that's, they're really speakers. The presiding officers and these are relatively as speakers, right? And the Senate has no power at all. And the representatives are not there. So therefore, those in the government really don't like this. Why? Because therefore they kind of do this. And if the people become what? At the latter, the people are greedy, cowardly, pusillanimous, small-souled, fonder of repose, fonder of peace and comfort than freedom. They don't hold out against the redoubled efforts of government. Government will kind of like say, don't hold us accountable, don't check us. So it is that. With the force of resistance constantly increasing, the sovereign authority finally vanishes, and most cities fall and perish prematurely. So therefore, it is without the force of resistance constantly increase the resistance against the government that the people meet, the people restrain, the people check the scope of government. If this is not being done, the sovereign authority finally vanishes, so that so it is that with the forces of resistance constantly increasing, the resistance against the government in that sense, right? The sovereign authority finally vanishes. The government rules over it, and the city falls. The city falls. The political body, this body politic, perishes prematurely. But between sovereign authority and arbitrary government, there is sometimes introduced an intermediate power that must be discussed. This intermediate power, right? We have to talk about the intermediate power. And we want to talk about this next time. I'm going to stop here. I think this is going to be a short video in that regard. I'll stop here. This is all I plan to do, and I was going to do it. So I'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, please put them below. If you have anything you want to say about this or questions you had, something like maybe you want some more further explanation of this. If you liked it, like it, hit the like button, share it with a friend, share it on social media. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, help build the account subscription up. Because yes, what happens in YouTube is sometimes people who've kind of subscribed but have kind of left the platform, a couple of years ago or something. They reduced it. They constantly every so many months they kind of go back and he's been on, he hasn't been online for years, so let's remove his subscriptions. This is a way that YouTube's algorithm strikes at things. The other thing we can do is I can ask you to share it around and encourage others to do it. I'd like to grow some. We were near 400, and it kind of broke down because of the algorithm reduction. If you didn't like it, you can hit the dislike button. You can say, nah, but say why. That way we can learn. We can know why, what's wrong. Um, Another thing you can do is if you want to want to see my links in social media, the links are below. If you want to see the links to my academic social media, which deals with my scholarship and my research interests and things like that, my research papers and things like that, you can go link it below. The other thing is that if you want to help me to do what I do, you can do so by becoming a member or subscribes to our Patreon. Both links are below in that sense. If you don't have many things that we got there. I'm not asking. It's not. I think it's like $5 max. I think both one things. And what is this about? You're getting some benefits. Well, you're getting it free, so I don't pay for it. Yeah, okay. If people build something there, and there's a big community there, I will build something extra. But why should I build something that no one's going to use, right? So if they build something, something will happen. If they don't build something, maybe do an extra video. But I already doing not 5 videos a day, but 4 exact videos a week plus that. So please think about that. Help it. Oh, one other thing you do is you buy one of my books. I don't think they're links. I think there's the titles of the books. You can use it, find it on Amazon or through any bookstore, online bookstore you want to look for, or you're using traditional bookstores. Okay, fine, get those ways. That's it. This is again. We look at next time we'll meet. We'll look at chapters 15 through 18, and we will look at again. We meet on the Rousseau thing is Monday, Wednesdays, and Schmidt's dictatorship is Tuesday, Thursdays, with Fridays always being either kind of a live stream or a kind of messing around or a book chat. Maybe I'll do a book chat. Okay, well, that's it. Take care and have a good day. Nice seeing you. Bye bye.